I was talking with a client recently and they were expressing something that I've heard a million times before, and that is like, where do I find the passion in life? I feel like I'm just kind of like going through the motions. There's nothing wrong with my life, but there's nothing that really turns me on. And so, I feel like I'm a bit of a number in the larger scheme of my own game, so to speak. There's lots of things that are important to me, there are lots of things that I need to do. I love my wife, I love my family, all of that sort of stuff, but there's nothing really that, sets me on fire and gets me excited about what I want to do. And I so desperately want something in my life that is uplifting of my soul and that, I get excited about doing. He said, there's nothing that I actually really look forward to doing. There's nothing that if I stop doing it, I'd really miss it. And then he said, well, if you took my wife and kids away, well, I'd really miss them. He said, but I'm not passionate. He said, there's something that's not right in me, that I need to be passionate about something that I do to bring myself out. And I'll tell you what, if I had a buck for every time someone had asked me that question, I'd have a big pile of dollars here. The real problem here is that what most of us do is we start to look outside, and most people say to us, oh, I tried, that didn't do anything for me. And that's actually the recipe for a disaster, because you see, we've been taught to look outside, but when you think about passion, where does it live? Well, it's going to be on the inside. So what we don't understand about that is that we want something to do it to us. Now, whether that's gardening or boating or fishing or whatever it is, we want something, or painting or singing or composing songs, or what we want something that does it to us and makes us feel good. The reality is passion works the other way. And if you've ever been in love, you'll know what I'm talking about. When we love passionately, what happens is we give. We come from within and it comes pouring out of us. It's not that we get it back, although Hollywood says we have to get it back for the score to be even. And in many ways, we look at that and go, if I love someone passionately and they don't love me back, somehow I've lost. I'm going to suggest you haven't lost anything. In fact, you've gained because of the giving and the knowing of yourself. So, in my own personal experience, when I discovered that I was able to project myself into things, that's when I found that passion is something that I could turn on regardless of what the circumstances were. And that's really what we want to look for, is how do I get this coming pouring out of me rather than waiting for circumstances that are conducive. The first time I had this experience, I was laying bricks. Now, I'm no bricklayer. I was learning to lay bricks, and I decided not to make it a career, but I realised that when I was doing it, I could let myself go into it, and I could be extremely happy doing that. And on the days when I was laying bricks where I could get into the zone, and really what I'm saying is when I could project myself into it, then what would happen is it was a joyful experience. The weather didn't matter, the hard work didn't matter. Sure, they were there, but they weren't critical factors. I also noticed that, I was bricklaying because I was building our own home, and so I noticed that building did the same kind of thing for me. I could be having a traumatic experience or a beautiful experience depending on how I addressed the issue and how I turned up in the situation, rather than, was it a nice day or was the job coming together in the way that I wanted it to, or were there frustrations, etc. And if you've ever been on a building site, you'll know there's continuous frustrations. Of course, I've discovered the same thing about being an architect and about writing books and about teaching classes. And pretty much I've found that if I let myself go into something, then what happens is I can find the passion in it because it's not out there in the thing, it's here and is able to be addressed to it. And as a consequence of that, what happens is that I feel great because part of the real me has been exposed to me. There might be other people who benefit, I guess, and that's probably how we want things to be. But the reality is I know myself a little better. I feel better about myself. I've been lit up like a candle. I shine brighter. I'm more fun to be around. I get on better in my relationships and everything works better simply because I've gone in instead of going out. So what are the keys? When you're looking for passion, what are the things you've got to look for? Well, pretty much you've got to keep trying things until you find the thing that you can let yourself go into rather than the thing that does it for you. But the keys that are going to indicate that you've found that thing is, number one, time vanishes. So when you get lost in something, when your ego disappears and you are just present, in other words, you're still you, but there's no sense of needing to be somewhere or do well or achieve or show someone what you're doing or be proud of, or totally egoless state. And what happens is time can just go boom like that, and a few hours can vanish, and you wonder where they went to. Of course, it doesn't have to be a few hours. You're going to have 10 minutes just go up in smoke. Basically, when time stands still, you've found something that you've been able to project yourself into, and the reason behind that is you've become present to it. In other words, it's what you do to the situation, not what the situation does to you. But I've already said that. What really happens here is that when we experience this time vanishing and we're able to kind of like disappear into the process, then we do something, and you might be painting, or you might be gardening, or you might be whatever. For me, it's more likely to be gardening than painting. But what I've found is that, I grow my tomatoes because I love tomatoes that taste like tomatoes. I don't like to buy them from the shop because they taste like apples. But, I'm very happy to give them away. When I paint something, and I haven't painted for years, but I did spend a couple of years oil painting, very happy to give it away. So the result is not really the thing we're looking for, because we'll quite often just donate that to someone or give it to someone, and it's truly a gift from us. When I grow my tomatoes, there's a great deal of pleasure in giving them to someone, not because of what they are, although they're great because they taste like tomatoes and they're organic and all that sort of stuff, but the reality is some part of me goes with the tomatoes, but I don't lose a part of me. Some part of me is revealed to me. And you'll know what it's like. The act of giving, particularly when it's freely giving, is just such a joyful thing. So the thing to remind you about is that passion is not walking down the street looking for you and going to knock on your door and say, hey, do you mind if I come in and tell you what you're passionate about? Passion is something that you will liberate from within you. So what have you got to do? Well, my homework for you, I recommend that you do a couple of things. Number one, specify some time. Get into your diary and just block out some time where you're going to go looking for what it might be that you can let yourself flow into. The second thing to do once you've blocked that time out in your diary, and by the way, I don't mean once. It's very likely that once all you're going to experience is frustration. So I'm in on a regular basis. Maybe it's Sunday mornings, maybe it's Tuesday afternoons, but get an hour or two every week for several weeks, 6, 8, 10 weeks, and turn up on time. Now, what you have to do is you have to turn up on time and have a go for it by looking at, can I let myself go into this or not? So allowing the time for it, scheduling the time for it, and then turning up, and then giving yourself to the process are the critical things. Then when you find something, the trick is how far can you go with it? In other words, how far can I take this? As an artist, how far can I go before I feel like I'm not able to take it any further? How far can I go with fishing, gardening, painting, singing, dancing, whatever it is? How far can I take that before I feel like there's nothing left to give and I now need to look for the next thing? Because it's true that you can move from one thing to the next thing to the other thing and be passionate about it. You've just got to allow yourself in. So give that a go and let me know how you travel with it.